Soldiers in the Wildwood. Several miles southwest of the Black Wood, in a dreadfully dark, brick-lined citadel with cold corridors and flaming torches mounted to the wall, a king paced like an angry, caged tiger. Power and purpose guided his movements. He paced like an animal waiting for the perfect moment to launch itself at hopeless prey. He moved like a man who had no equal. King Caelin's royal robe and flowing knee-length hair drifted behind him as he moved back and forth anxiously. He was a fiercely, powerful-looking man with champagne skin, sinewy arms and legs, and a battle-hardened body. He might have been boyishly handsome at another time, but war and battle scars ended that countenance long ago. He was a feared and undefeated warrior king, the last of his kind. The dark anger in Caelin's eyes radiated like solar flares, threatening to consume everything in his path. Folson, a dour, ugly monk with pock-marked jaundiced skin and the slithering steeliness of a cobra, recognized this and smartly opted to keep his distance. "What madness compels my queen to wander frivolously into the night?" Caelin throatily bellowed. His voice was as unforgiving and arrogant as any king. "My kingdom battles thieves and raiders. Does Shayla believe I have no more important matters to worry about?" Folson waited a few moments to be sure the question was not rhetorical. "Shayla is ripe with flighty actions, my lord," he replied. "Lately she has spent many hours in the dark wood. Not even I can fathom the incongruent behavior of this woman, my lord." Caelin turned a steely eye to Folson, who backed away. "I have no desire to understand my queen. I command all to obey." "Of course, my lord." Folson offered appeasement. "My shortcomings have no bearing on the king's authority." "Safford should arrive at the Black Wildwood shortly. When he returns with Empress Shayla, he must bring her to me immediately." Folson started towards the ornately carved doorway to a magnificent courtyard poised in the castle's centre, but he turned back. "My lord, what shall we do with the private guard of the queen?" Caelin spat, purposely showing his contempt for the subjects in question. "They allowed my queen to leave without escort. They are incapable." "Banishment?" Folson asked. "Summon all of them to the courtyard for 80 stripes from the cane." Caelin was sneering now. "Any man left standing may continue to serve me." Folson departed quickly. Whenever the king had that look in his eyes, it was best to do as told, and abandon him immediately. Miles away, as the sun fell beneath the horizon and darkness moved like slow-moving death over the landscape, the sound of galloping hoofbeats from 10 horses thundered across the valley. A nobleman and soldier, Safford led 10 warriors on horseback through the valley. Their skin was as golden as the sun, and their hair was fine and long, extending down the small of their backs in rope-like braids. The men stopped suddenly at the edge of the tree line where the valley morphed into the Black Wildwood. The horses whinnied to protest against going deeper into the wildwood. They were uneasy with being so close to the darkness of the woods. The warriors dismounted, grabbed swords and spears, and walked the last few meters to the tree line. Unconsciously or instinctively, half of the men reflexively gripped the hilts of their swords. Taking a moment to exchange reluctant glances at each other, the men paused, waiting for Safford. He was the first to enter the woods, knowing that if he had not done so, the warriors would have stayed at the valley's edge indefinitely. Just inside the woods, with the valley disappearing behind them and the sky darkening above them, Safford beckoned a young tracker to the front. Sabort, wise beyond his young years, confidently took the lead. His eyes stayed glued to the forest floor, and he saw what others could not see. His eyes danced in thought as he pieced together the movements of an unidentified person in the woods. Sabiot stopped momentarily to look at the sky. Darkness was upon them, and the forest would bathe them in black now. He wordlessly clicked 2 flintstones together, causing sparks he used to light his torch. He passed the torch down the line as each warrior silently lit a torch. Armed with light, the warriors continued into the forest. They walked deeper and deeper into the darkness. Visibility would have been non-existent without the soft, cumulative glow of 10 burning torches. They marched across streams, climbed up small hills, and stumbled down steep embankments while trusting Sabot's sight. Ngok, a bold but nervous warrior, took advantage of the silence to be the first to speak. "Silly children's tales say madness, and ghosts lurk here," Ngok uttered. "Do you believe as much?" Vu, a young warrior close to the same age, guffawed. "Should we not be adorned with ghost blades and spectre shields?" As the men chuckled, Safford shook his head in disappointment. He was 15 or 20 years older than the rest of the men. He had seen much more in battle, war, and unexplained phenomena of the black Wildwood. The men then had a lot to learn. "You boldly make light of things to coddle your uneasy spirit," Safford spat. "You sound like a foolish child whistling in a bear's cave." "I merely suggest that, if there be madness, let us look at the queen who walks alone into the night," Vu protested, "not at the rustling leaves and scurrying animals of the black Wildwood." "Perhaps she has been infected by the mad king of Nyansvut," Sabot interjected. Each member of the search party laughed nervously. It was fun to take a moment to make fun of King Carlin. He was well known for his propensity for inconsistency and an irrepressible disposition. The men shared a nervous chuckle, grateful for the change in topic and the distraction. But their anxiety returned like a flood when a twig snapped under the weight of approaching footsteps. The warriors drew their swords, took their battle stations, and prepared for whatever might come. They hoped for a human trespasser, but feared something supernatural. "It can only be raiders out here in the dark," Ngok nervously offered. His words were more of a plea for the others to agree than a statement. "Who else would lurk in the black Wildwood at night?" Their vision struggled against the darkness surrounding them, as swords and shields were held tightly and at the ready. Fierce war faces replaced the casual uneasiness that once adorned their expressions, but as they gazed at the approaching luminescence of human form caused by the flicker of torchlight, the group's fierce countenance was suddenly replaced by awkward shock. Safford's jaw dropped. "What madness befalls us that we bear witness to our queen in such a manner?" Shayla came forward with smatterings of black earth across her naked body and a large, round, protruding belly in place of the flat abdomen she once possessed just hours earlier. Safford quickly covered her with his cloak. "Queen, are you well?" Safford fearfully inquired. There had to be some trauma or shock the queen suffered to stand before them as such. Shayla was not affected by her nakedness or by the eyes of the men locked on her body and swollen belly. "I am. Thank you, Safford," she replied calmly. "Please take me home." She pulled Safford's cloak tighter around her. Sabiot snatched off his straw sandals, bowed, and proffered them to his queen. She bowed in return as he laid the shoes at her bare feet. She slipped her dirty feet into the sandals and touched Sabot's shoulder as a thank you. Speaking ill of King Callan was one thing. All the warriors had participated in teasing and mocking Callan. He was the perfect scapegoat. His mannerisms, ill temper, and logic that often bordered on the insane were all fair game for the men, even for Safford. But Empress Shayla was another matter. She possessed deep-rooted empathy and the ability to relate to men and women of all statuses, whether servant, warrior, or statesman. Shayla commanded respect in a way that few others could. She was warm and compassionate. She fought for those far below her station. Shayla was loved. Giving up his sandals was the least Sabiort, or any man, could do for Empress Shayla. He was happy to do so,